Check, check. Check, check. There we go. Check, check. There we go. I had to put the input in there now. Okay, so I can mute my. I can go ahead and mute my background mic and everything. But welcome, that one do it. That one do it. Welcome, What If MHA, and welcome, Sourbone Marrow. I don't think I've ever seen you here before. Konnichiwa. So, Hajimashita. So yeah, you guys know. To let you know, I am not fluent in any way with Japanese. I pretty much only know some Japanese from repeated use of watching anime episodes. So don't count on me to know exactly what certain words mean or to even strike up a conversation. One day I'll try and learn Japanese, but as of right now, my Japanese is bar none. But yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, bringing you the newest chapter from My Hero Academia. As many of you know, One Piece is currently on break is on break today. We won't get a new chapter until next week. So today I'm only going to be able to bring you My Hero and then my episode reaction to the latest One Piece episode that released already. So we have chapter 260 from My Hero Academia. Now, I want to give a little bit of a backstory because of certain things that have transpired due to the recent chapter that happened. So in the last chapter, we got the name of All for One's right-hand man, and his name is Maruta Shiga. But, unfortunately, that name has come under fire for the author of My Hero because of its reference to certain things that happened during World War II. So let me go ahead and give you like a little bit of synopsis if some of you don't know. Yeah, they're changing his name, but let me give you a reason of why. Towards the beginning of the issue, My Hero Academia reveals the real name of Daruma Ujiko, a villain dedicated to carrying out the plans for All for One. Daruma is in fact Maruta Shiga, the founder of Jaku General Hospital and chairman of its board of directors. Although he's done much charity work, Shiga is responsible for creating the Nomu, who are essentially heavily modified humans. Ujiko is ambiguously one of the manga's villains. But the name and meaning of the word Maruta means log. And back in World War II, there was a Japanese unit known as Japanese Unit 731. They used that term to refer to Chinese and Korean people that they experimented on. Now, it goes into detail about some of the things that happened, but it was the name that they used for Chinese and Korean people to basically call them just logs, literally trees to be cut down. They were used for heavy experimentation, and 3,000 Chinese and Korean people linked, and they were referred to as such. They were subjected to vivisection without anesthesia, and after they had been deliberately infected with diseases such as typhus and cholera, and some had limbs amputated or organs removed. It goes into so much detail, but the actions are among the many war crimes committed during that period by the Japanese army, which continue to cause tension between the nation and its neighbors. Now, Maruta can mean here's the thing, where is it? I just saw it where it says that it can mean other things, but that name is far too associated with the actions that Unit 731 pretty much referred to the Chinese and Korean people back in World War II, because they were essentially just human test subjects. It's a dehumanizing term, and that's why, as of right now, China has pretty much banned the entire manga from being distributed in China because of that one chapter. Now, it is not by its. Hold on, where's his name? Where is his name? Kohei did not intend for this to be even in reference to the war crimes that happened during World War II. But many people who know of these war crimes and people who are still, have a personal vendetta against the actions of Unit 731. On Twitter, the creator, yeah, exactly. It says it right here. It's meant to mean fat, and Shiga is for Shigaraki. But unfortunately, Korean people of Korean and Chinese descent have seen this as a reference to the dehumanizing term that Unit 731 used against them when their people were experimented on during World War II. That brings up far too many dark memories for many people who actually took part in World War II and people who are associated with it. So they're changing his name. Hopefully we'll see this name change in this chapter, and hopefully at some time in the future China can start to distribute this manga again so that everyone can read it. But this one chapter alone draws so much ire, and Kohei already has like a bunch of people, mainly Chinese and Korean people, coming up on his Twitter telling him how he's horrible for referencing this, even though it wasn't his intention. All the more reason why people just in general, people just need to be careful how they portray people, what names they use, and to make sure that the names that they're using do not have any way of directly insulting people of different nationalities or what have you. I just thought I'd let you guys know that if his name changes in this chapter from the previous chapter, that's just a little backstory right there. So I hope you guys don't mind, but I just want to get that out in the air just in case some of you read this chapter and wonder why the name change. I'm just letting you guys know. So I hope I didn't take up too much of your time. Do you think My Hero will fall because of this? No, it is not going to fall. I mean, sure, China is a big country, but it's not the only country that this manga is distributed in. So should Kohei completely lose China, even if he changes the name and China chooses not to distribute My Hero in China, there's still hundreds of other countries, including the US and Europe and so many other places that can still distribute this type of manga. So it's just one country left off. Sure, it's a very high power country, but My Hero is not going to fall in any way because of this one moment. I mean, people were mad. People were going out of their way to come at Kohei, trying to tell him when, like, the way they translated a line said by Rotlock's wife in reference to how their baby was born and how basically the baby got all of Rotlock's genetics, and how that anime episode where it showed her saying that, some people saw it as a way of saying, like, wow, that's kind of insulting. So, and even then, My Hero, the anime, is still going on just fine. It's going on like normal, and it's not as big as an issue as it was before. Today isn't your day, not gonna lie. Hey, Jacob, what's going on? Also, Psycho Ghost Rider, is good to see you, and Cool K as well. If I did not say hi at the beginning, as soon as you showed up, please forgive me. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. How much time have I actually gone into? 9 minutes, and I still haven't started the chapter. Please forgive me. I need to go ahead and do that right now. Sorry if I'm just taking up too much of your time. Your dog scratched all down your chest. Eee, I'm sorry, man. Dog nails are not comfortable, regardless if they're cut or long. But let's go ahead and get with this chapter, chapter 260. Now, in the last chapter, Shiga, I'm just going to call him Daruma. I'm going to call him Daruma because that's his name. Daruma was just walking through the hospital, and the heroes know that that's where he resides because they seen a picture of a video where they seen a picture of him coming out of his secret room, which obviously has Monomu in it, walking around with a small Nomu wearing sneakers, and they surmise that that's where he resides. Now, of course, as soon as all of the major heroes get there, Daruma has absolutely no idea that the heroes are there. So as soon as Endeavor walks up and says, "You're All for One's right-hand man, you're finished," Daruma completely loses his mind and is screaming at the top of his lungs, like, "Ah!" Like, literally, snot's coming out of his nose, his eyes are open wide, his mouth is open, every hair on his body is standing up on end. Then the dangly things in the doorway of the kitchen wrapped around your neck and knotted, and then when you get choked, you feel a lump in your neck. Weird, right? Oh, man, I'm sorry that's happened to you. Oh, you all right? Are you doing all right? You doing okay? I hope you are. But let me go ahead and continue to read this chapter. There'll be plenty of time for us to, talk more as we go throughout. Chapter 260, Life's Work. On one side, and this is between, this is a panel that shows Endeavor at Jakku Hospital and Hawks at Gunga Mountain Villa, which is where pretty much the para-liberation front is with Shigaraki and everyone else right now. But about 80 kilometers apart. So let's see what happens. And Daruma just shrieks out, "Yee! How? Doctor?" And he trips because Aizawa trips him, and then Endeavor starts to close in on him, and he starts to wheeze. Is his body changing? What's going on? He's huffing really hard. Looks like the registry was wrong. And Aizawa uses his quirk, and he looks at Daruma, but something about Daruma is off. Like his body's starting to look even more ragged. What is going on with him? He aged the second you hit him with your eraser, so he does have a quirk. Wait. Yo, dude started to age as soon as Aizawa erased his quirk. So does he have a quirk that keeps him young, in a way? He aged the second you hit him with your eraser, so he does have a quirk. Could that be the same quirk that kept All for One alive this long? The Black Nomu specifically are all equipped with hyper regeneration. Similar quirks could also exist, but it's not common by any means. That type we classify as a rare quirk. So it's quirk replication, or maybe artificial quirks. You provided All for One with that technology. And President Mike is here, and he is mad. Wow, neat. You could apply all that to regenerative medical care. Basically, it's like using cheat codes. Yet. And he flips over Dharma. Why did you use it the way you did? Why did you do it, you old piece of trash? Wow. Haven't seen President Mike this angry since they went to go see, well, pretty much the Nomuized body of their friend Oboro. Stop that. Please don't be so rough with him. Please don't be so rough with him. What did the good doctor even do? Stand back, people. This isn't right. We need you out of here. And the sad thing is, there isn't a single staff member in that whole hospital that knows anything about what Daruma really is, or the fact that he's the right-hand man of the greatest villain that Japan has ever seen. So, of course, and in their eyes, he's like a perfect doctor, such a nice doctor. Even though he's rarely seen at the hospital, everyone has such respect for him. What are the odds that some of these people may have been secretly experimented on and they have hidden quirks that could aid the doctor? That's just a theory, but it doesn't, it's not accurate though. And like I said, okay, here's the whole thing. So in the last chapter, in my last stream I had of this chapter, I was talking about, wait, who is Daruma? So you know how Daruma is the real name of Maruta Shiga, which is the doctor that's been working with All for One. His villain name is Daruma something. Well, actually, his name that the world knows as him is Daruma, but his name is Maruto Shiga. I'm not using the word Maruta due to, well, the controversy linked behind that name, so I'm just calling him Daruma instead. But the doctor guy, just All for One's doctor. Yeah, apparently, back then in the last chapter, I was talking about what are they going to do for people who are in intensive care or are bedridden, just in case they start fighting with Nomu in the hospital. And we already got the wild pussycats here, escorting a lot of people who can't move for themselves outside of the building already. We got Ectoplasm helping move people who are still hooked up to IVs and bed. We're evacuating the entire hospital in case we need to fight any Nomu. And I was just talking about what are they going to do if there's Nomu inside the morgue and they start fighting in there. A lot of people can't move for themselves, but they're already evacuating the hospital just in case a fight goes down. So it's good to know that the heroes are ready. And we got Miriko, the bunny hero. Best case, we take this place without spilling a drop of blood. Those Nomu brains are programmed to obey a designated handler. Without orders, they're just useless lumps. And she just drop kicks into the morgue. We know that. Oh, wait. So this must be Tsukauchi saying all this. Best case, we take this place without spilling a drop of blood. Those Nomu brains are programmed to obey a designated handler. Without orders, they're just useless lumps. We know that much from studying the ones we've caught so far. And she just drop kicks into the morgue. The people you tinkered with and tossed aside are all saying. And Aizawa is wrapping up Daruma in his cloth. This is our payback. All these people are saying this is our payback. And he just stares at him. Aizawa has a personal stake in this because of what Dharma has done to their childhood friend who they were told died, but his body was pretty much used to become a perfect Nomu and become the being that we know as Kurogiri. No, please have mercy. Miriko, have mercy. And Miriko is already jumping headfirst into the hallway ahead of everyone else. And Dharma smiling. Endeavor, we got company. And like I knew it. I knew he had a whole bunch of Nomu in that morgue ready and prepared to fight the heroes. I called it last week. Because there's a bunch of them. Oh, there's so many in here. And one of them knocks Dharma away from Aizawa, though he's still linked up in a ways. They just come tearing straight through the wall. But one of the Nomu has like a drill arm, and the drill arm goes straight into the side of Daruma. High-end Nomus as well. Exactly. High-end Nomus. So organisms replicated by the double quirk are nullified by erasure. Good to know. Ho ho, if I knew I had replication technology, then you should have been more wary. No, that's expecting too much from you, I suppose. Ho. And the dude looks like his body is melting. What the heck is this? Twice his quirk? Oh, that's not even him. He copied twice his quirk to create a decoy. Because he's all the way in his secret lab somewhere else. Then again, how could they have known that? I've let my double handle everything while I've been occupied with Tomura Shigaraki, my masterpiece. And there's Tomura sitting inside some giant vat. Gestating somehow? I don't know. Darn them, those meddlesome heroes. And he pops into his chair. I didn't want to abandon the hospital. Do they have any idea how much time and equipment it takes to replicate and cultivate a single quirk? Or how much I've labored to amass this stockpile of quirks? And he's sliding into a room where there is bookshelves upon bookshelves of individual quirks. There are literally hundreds. It's all crammed in here. My life's work, the blood, sweat, tears, and happy days spent with All for One. All for it! And Miriko is just sweeping through all the Nomu, killing them all. All of it. A rush! And she's literally cutting them apart just by her feet alone. I got a tough call to make. Your walk is over, Johnny. I need you to warp Shigaraki and me out of here. Stat! That's not his actual accent, but still. And Miriko crashes through into a secret laboratory and crushes the Nomu that was apparently going to teleport him out. Today is not his day. But dang, Miriko is strong. She burst through the wall and the whole place exploded. And she burst through the wall where a lot of the quirks he's been holding are pretty much shattered on the ground already. Yep, they're just falling on the ground. Are you the real one? And we get another panel with him screaming his head off because this is the real him. The one that we've seen before was a clone created by Twice's quirk. This is the real him trying to run. And I feel like the Heroes is winning this war. Everything looks here's the thing that worries me. Everything is going so well. Too well. Because this is the same room where he's keeping a bunch of other Nomu, high-end Nomu no less, and Tomura Shigaraki after he's been experimenting, after Daruma's been experimenting on him. So now the Heroes pretty much crashed into a secret laboratory where he's been cultivating everything he's been doing, his entire life's work. Mirko has pretty much cut down every single Nomu in the hallway by herself. It's no wonder she's the number three hero, I think. I could be entirely wrong. Someone is going to correct me later. It always happens. But she pretty much just burst into the laboratory by herself, asking if he's the real one. And Daruma is just, crapping his pants right now, crying out and screaming, tears in his eyes, snot coming out of his nose. The panel just says it all. It's if this isn't a sign of absolute terror and fear from a villain, I don't know what is. But it says that the next chapter doesn't hit until next week, so My Hero isn't going on break anytime soon. It seems. But yeah. Here I was thinking that the Nomu were going to come out and it's going to be an all massive fight. No, Mirko just goes in and using only her legs and feet, just kicking them all, cutting off heads, cutting off limbs on her own. She ran out in front of everybody and just cut down every single Nomu that stood in her way. How many Nomu were in that hallway? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the hallway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actually. There looks to be like 6 Nomu. And she just bolted in there. And in one, she's number 5. Thank you, Shabab. Thank you. She ran in there by herself and pretty much cut down every single one of those Nomu. And just effortlessly took it out. Took every single one of them. Beheading so many. She beheaded all of them. Mirko is probably going to die. I feel like we haven't seen enough from Mirko for her to die just yet. Like, she just got introduced. Like, the first time we see her is when we see the public listing of the brand new hero rankings after when Endeavor became the number 1. And we saw the listings of all those people. And then we only seen a little bit more of her when Endeavor was facing down Dabi after Endeavor took down High End. So I feel like even though she's put herself in a very, very dangerous place, considering all the Nomu that Daruma has stored in his laboratory, I feel like she's put herself in a very dangerous place. Now, part of me wants to believe that she's going to be just fine. So, one woman army, pretty much. She cut down, like, not a lot of people can say that they effortlessly took down 5 Nomu in an instant, crashed through the entrance of the laboratory, and then at the same time corners the one man who's linked to All for One all on her own. Now, the thing is, bro, there's like 16 high-end Nomu in that room. Yeah. There's a lot of them. So all the more reason for the rest of the heroes to get in there and back her up. Because I don't want to see another hero die. Like, we saw what happened to Night Eye. And we've seen a lot of heroes die so far. Like, the Sand hero that went up against like Compress and Shigaraki, he pretty much got killed by Compress, pretty much bisecting him by compressing his upper body. And he died that way. Then Night Eye died by getting impaled straight through the middle. And as you know, the spine is through the middle. And if you mess with the spine, then it is not a good thing. And Night Eye died from that. And then we have Mirko here. Though I just want to be positive about this. And hopefully she remains alive during this entire assault. But there's another thing to consider. Shigaraki is there as well. And we've already seen his quirk become extended. I'm done reading the chapter. It's over. It says that the next chapter hits on the 16th, which is ending with Mirko facing off against Dharma himself. So I'm just going to talk now. But Shigaraki's in there. Tomura Shigaraki's in there. He's in the vat, and apparently whatever Dharma was doing to him is done, and he's just having him rest in, like, I don't know, like some Bacta tank. You know, Star Wars fans out there. He's just having him resting in there for right now. We've seen Shigaraki's quirk go from just a certain surface of where he's touching to being able to cover an entire city now. That's how he won the fight against Redestro. Hey, Kyushu, what kind of experiment is Shigaraki going through? We don't know all the details except by what Dharma has been saying about Shigaraki. In order for Shigaraki to become the successor of All for One, he wanted to give Shigaraki the ultimate power. And it took Shigaraki beating Redestro in Deka City, showing that his quirk has extended to the point where it can cover literally an entire city and even a little bit of the mountain range in the background, that his rot decay quirk can extend to not just what he's touching, but what is touching the thing that he's touching. So if he touches a person and there's a crowd of people behind him, he just needs to swipe in one direction and the decay will go through everyone that's touching that one person. He's more likely getting a more powerful version of All for One. Maybe. Seeing as how All for One sees Shigaraki as his true successor and the only person to carry on his legacy and, you know, continuing this whole reign of evil that he's got going on. Whatever Dharma has been experimenting on Shigaraki with, it is going to be fundamentally powerful. Now, mind you, the ultimate goal of Shigaraki is just to destroy everything. He's going to destroy everything in 5 months. This is taking us back this is actually occurring now. But this is actually telling us the events that are leading up to that. I don't know what he wants to call it, but he just intends to destroy everything. But concerning the experiment that is going on with Shigaraki, we don't know the full details of it. There's theories out there. Some people may say that he's going through the same, it could be a way of improving his quirk. It could be giving him another quirk, because we've seen panels where Shigaraki was on like on a hospital bed, and he was just literally being launched in the air, screaming out in absolute agony, blood just literally shooting from his body, because that's how much pain he's being put through. But we don't know the full extent of the experiment itself. Because some chapters ago, the doctor said he might be able to steal one for all. That's why I think Shigaraki is getting one for all, getting All for One. Because the way I see it, and I've been saying this a whole bunch when it comes to certain chapters, All for One and working with Dharma and creating the Nomu has been All for One's way of trying to replicate One for All. Due to his brother having that power, due to his brother having the ability to pass on his a quirk, his brother didn't know that, the All for One didn't know that his brother already had a quirk. So he gave him another quirk on top of the one he already had, which then became One for All. And every time a person of One for All passed on that power, it got more and more powerful, and it became, you know, beyond what All for One could steal. Because All for One cannot take All for One cannot take One for All. He can't. That's why I feel he's been creating the Nomu, to try and replicate that same process, give a person multiple quirks at once. But he hasn't been able to accurately perfect it, especially with working with Dharma, because One for All is unique in and of itself. It can't be stolen. It has to be willfully given. But given the type of smart people that we have here in My Hero, I would not put it past anyone that Dharma may have found some type of way, I don't know, some roundabout type of way to try and take One for All by force. Even though we've seen it stated that One for All has to be, you know, passed on and willfully given, because at one point, All Might was worried that when Stain was fighting Midoriya and everyone, and Stain took in some of Midoriya's blood, One for All Might was worried, like, did he take some of your blood? You got to be careful. But and then he explains that One for All has to be willingly passed on. You have to want to give it to somebody. So It's not like you can take it by force, because if that was the case, then Stain would have it just by lapping up some of Midoriya's blood during the fight that they had back in what was it? What was it? Not Hoso, but was it Kyoto? Kyushu? Not Q with a Q, but KYU. But I forget the district. But when Stain was fighting Midoriya and the rest of them, he took some of Midoriya's blood, and that got All Might worried. So it's not like One for All can be forcefully taken, because if it was that easy, then all they had to do was just get Toga or somebody to stab Midoriya, take some of his blood, and then, you know, have someone inject that blood into them, and then they have the power. It's not that simple. So my theory is, maybe the doctor. What if the doctor takes Izuku's DNA and edits it to where he can give a lot of no moves, One for All, also Gigantomachia? That's the thing, though. One for All is unique where it has to be passed on willingly by the person who has it. It can't just be forcibly taken, because All for One has tried that before. And All Might has stated that it can't be taken. And he's had that quirk for many, many years. And I'm pretty sure he's run into people who has tried to take the quirk, especially All for One himself. So it's not like you can just take some of Midoriya's DNA and then just simply transplant it into some Nomu, and then they suddenly have All for One. It doesn't work like that. I feel like quirks are unique to the body that they're in. That's why you don't, like, sure, you can take some quirks and put them in people, but when it comes to something as extensive as One for All, because there's multiple quirks of One for All. As we've seen, we have like the superhuman elements that we all attribute All for One, All Might to. All for One, One for All, All Might. So a lot of alls are confusing me right now. But we've seen the superhuman aspect of All for One in All Might. You know, superhuman strength, superhuman speed, durability, all the whole nine. Then we have Black Web quirk by the hero that we don't know, the bald guy who has that quirk. That's in One for All as well. There's several other quirks in One for All. And I feel like if it was just a singular quirk, sure, he could take it. But One for All is so complex that it's going to require a lot more than just simply injecting some blood and putting it into another thing in order for that quirk to be in a Nomu or Gigantomachia or Tomura Shigaraki. One for All is so, it's like if a quirk is like a double helix, like a regular DNA strand, then I want to say that One for All would be like a quadruple DNA strand. I know those don't exist, but think of a super complex DNA strand. That's One for All, whereas normal quirks are like regular DNA strands. There's so much complexity in One for All by itself, and the fact that it has numerous quirks all linked up to it from numerous other people. And even with Nanashimura, at some point, Midoriya is going to learn how to fly, because Nanashimura's quirk was floating and, you know, flying in the air. And I feel like with her working with Gran Torino, that kind of complements both of them, because Gran Torino can, you know, breathe in the air and push out air from his feet, and it allows him to, you know, ricochet and fly different places. Now, Nashimura can float. So at that same level, she can fly. So at some point, Midoriya is going to learn how to fly. There's just, you understand that there's so much going on with One for All by itself, that it's not just some quirk that can just easily be taken just by taking blood. It's far too complex. I'm sorry if I've been spending too much time, you know, going on this whole thing, but it is not that simple. You can't just take One for All. It's got to be given. And I feel like with every single person we see revealed that has had One for All, we're going to understand just why it's that particular quirk that has to be passed, that has to willfully be passed on. And not only that, I feel like it's the mechanic of All for One's brother's quirk that keeps that quirk from being taken. Because All for One's brother, like I said, had a quirk where it was completely useless for him. All he could do was just pass it on to another. Pass on what? Don't know, because he didn't have anything at all, except the quirk that just lets him pass on his quirk to pass on to another individual. It wasn't until All for One gave him another quirk, and that quirk combined to turn into One for All. And then as it kept being passed by user to user to user to user, it kept getting stronger and stronger. And in that same instance, I want to say that it also got more resilient to being tampered with from the outside. That is the reason why that One for All can't be taken. It's just too strong of a quirk to be forcibly taken. It's too complex, it's too powerful, and only people who actually train themselves can actually use that power. So at the same instance, people who are not users can't just take it because it's too strong, it's too tough, it's One for All. It's too powerful. You can't take it. You got to, it's so powerful, you actually have to willingly give that power because you can't take it. But that's just my thoughts. I'm sorry if I went on a whole. I am so sorry if I just went off on a whole rant there. Wow, I am so sorry. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. Wow, my mouse speed changed again. But that's my thoughts on it. And I'm just looking at this panel again. I'm just this last panel here. And I'm just talking about the chapter as a whole. How long have I been going on for? 37 minutes? Wow, I didn't realize I went on that long. Apologies if I went on too long, you guys. But that's just the way I feel. All for One has been working with Dharma to try and replicate the complexity and the sheer power of One for All, but he can't. Regardless of how many Nomu he creates, he can't create a Nomu that accurately copies what One for All is. Like, even they tried with the first Nomu that we've seen, where when they were attacking UA High School, and that Nomu was specifically meant to fight All Might, such as being able to absorb blows and being extremely tough and shock absorption and have full-on regeneration. Something that could make All Might, who was getting older and who was so much more weaker during that time, make it difficult for him to fight. But in the end, he still won out because One for All is too powerful for one. Is stronger than any Nomu that we've ever seen. Anytime All Might fights, he's not even fighting at 100% of his power all the time. And even when he was weakened, had a lot of his organs removed, had his limit of being in his muscle form for only an hour, and then got it significantly reduced before he passed on his quirk to Midoriya. It just shows that One for All is far too powerful to be simply replicated. Often imitated, but never duplicated. That's the whole thing of One for All. It's often imitated, but it's never duplicated because it's strong. It's strong. But that's just my opinion. But overall, this chapter, I thought it was a pretty good chapter. Now, as far as what are my thoughts on what the next chapter is going to be like and what's it going to allude to, who knows? Maybe in a last-ditch effort, Dharma is going to release all the Nomu he has, who could be high-ends for all we know, and try and sick them on the heroes. But at the same time, it's not just Endeavor facing one high-end by himself. There are multiple top-tier heroes all there, ready to face off and ready to fight. I'm pretty much all the major heroes who are at the hospital right now are all massively combat oriented. Not just, ready to fight when need be. No, their whole quirks revolve around combat itself. So I honestly believe that once the fighting really starts, because Mirko pretty much just one-shot all the Nomu that were in the hallway. And I'm pretty sure she could do it to a lot of the Nomu who are in there right now. But for her safety, I would like for her to, dial it back a little bit and wait for some of the heroes to get there, or at least apprehend Dharma and keep him from releasing the Nomu. No need to apologize. You're talking about something you love. Thank you, Crown Clown. But hopefully the heroes will get there in time to back her up before things get too dicey. Wait, if put whole lot of strength enhancing quirks and maybe like 100 strength enhancing quirks mixed together, would it be stronger than One for All? Here's the thing. All for One had multiple strength quirks in him already. Due to his ability to take quirks, he's pretty much stockpiled a bunch of quirks to offset the strength of All Might. I mean, All for One is the only one who was able to go toe to toe with All Might and actually harm him in a very serious way. Now we've seen the Nomu do it, but that was just to All Might. It was kind of minor, even though the Nomu was grabbing him in the spot where his injury was. All for One has stockpiled a bunch of strength quirks to combat All Might's strength, because All Might is like, we've seen his strength. He's strong enough where he can punch the air and it can change the weather. Like, it was clear one day, he cleared out the fire that was like back when the slime creature was trying to take over Bakugo, and Midoriya went to help him, and then All Might came in, and all he did was punch. The updraft from it was enough to cause the fire to be put out and for it to rain. So he has enough power to literally change the weather. He has enough strength to literally crater half a city. So even if you were to stockpile 100 strength enhancing quirks together, would it be stronger than One for All? No, because all the people that use One for All, they all train themselves to use it. Because if you were to use All for One at its full strength, no problem. Like, here's an example. Midoriya, when he had Eri and he was fighting against Chisaki, Midoriya was using ridiculous amounts of strength. So much strength that I'm pretty sure that if he didn't have Eri, he would have killed himself. Because the strength output of One for All is too much for like a regular body that is fully untrained and fully prepared and fully perfected to use that quirk to sustain. Because All Might said during like his training, like, if Midoriya had not trained for All for One, trained for One for All, I am getting so sidetracked with these All for One, One for All, All Mights, and Alls. Anything with Alls in them is confusing the heck out of me. I am so sorry. But if Midoriya didn't train for One for All, his body would have exploded from the sheer power output of the quirk itself. Just the quirk activating would have caused his body to blow up. That's why he made Midoriya train. And then, even then, up to a certain point, he could only get to about 10%. And even that 10% was capable of breaking his body constantly. Then we went up higher than that. It just, like, we've seen it happen. Like, in the beginning, when he couldn't fully control the quirk, he would break his arm or leg or finger or whatever he used every single time he used it. Until he started to get used to it, started to learn how to fully regulate it. Even when he was training with the quirk, when Aizawa took them all outside to test their quirks and see just how far their limits are. Even when he put the strength in the tip of his finger, the tip of his finger was still bruised, because even with him just controlling it and condensing it on a single point of his finger to throw the ball, it's still too much power for his body to accurately contain. That's why his finger was still injured. Even with a small little bit of power, it's still capable of injuring him. So and I just feel like even if that amount of power can damage your body, when you just condense it to a single point of your finger, it has got to be truly powerful when it goes up against people who mix strength upon powerful quirks on top of each other and still try to combat that. So do I think that enhancing quirks, maybe like 100 strength enhancing quirks mixed together, would it be stronger than One for All? I do not think it would be, because One for All is literally the power incarnate quirk. Even though we have All for One, who's ridiculously strong, One for All is literally power itself personified. That's what I see. That's just me personally. Sure, we have a bunch of people out there in My Hero right now who have strength-based quirks, but none of them compare to the sheer power that All Might had when he used One for All, and now Midoriya has it as well. But that's just my opinion. But that's all I got to say about that. All I got to say about One for All and All for One. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do this. All for One. One for All. I'm gonna pull up the quirk for One for All, and I'm gonna pull up the quirk for All for One. just to kind of contrast and compare themselves to. All right. So, All for One, and just to give you like a rough summary and comparison between the two, just in case you guys have never looked up the wiki page and just gone and looked at the deep details that's in between these two quirks by itself. So, All for One is a quirk that allows the user to steal other people's quirks and wield these stolen powers as their own or transfer them to someone else. That's how he transferred an additional quirk to his brother when All for One did it. The process of giving and taking away quirks is done through touch. People who have their quirks stolen become quirkless, losing any sort of abnormal features if they happen to be mutant types. Kind of like Spinner. He would revert to being a normal human being if his quirk to just stick to walls was taken, which many of us call a pretty useless quirk because there's only so much you can do with just being able to stick to walls. I mean, Asui can do that, but she has a lot more versatile moveset to that. When quirks are stolen, the victim becomes disoriented and immobile for a short time. Meanwhile, quirkless people who receive a quirk through All for One become capable of manifesting all of its attributes. Rarely, a quirk granted by this ability can blend together with the original quirk of the target, creating an entirely new one, as shown with One for All. All for One can be used to combine several quirks in order to create devastating techniques, which would normally not be possible with the usage of one quirk, which All for One did during his fight with All Might. One example is, let me scroll down to the description of the quirk that he used. Where is it? Quirk. He has kinetic boosters, air cannon, spring-like limbs, which enhances his physical strength. The ability to search and monitor up to 100 people at a time, which is a quirk he stole from Ragdoll. Being able to warp around, being able to warp people in and out of areas, like causing like a black liquid to come out of people and teleport them anywhere. Air cannons that can release massive shockwaves from his arms can be combined with like his enhanced strength enhancement quirks to make it even more powerful. And he can literally charge and build up these one quirks by themselves to cause numerous effects. Kinetic boosters, increasing the amount of kinetic energy All for One creates and releases. Strength enhancer. He has 3 copies of this quirk. So he has 3, and these are able to go up against All Might no problem. But I still feel like All Might is stronger. Yeah, All for One is too powerful. He has spring-like limbs, kinetic booster, 3 different strength enhancer quirks. Impact recoil, which makes it so that anything that hits him completely reflects back at the person. So if you punch him in the face, he can reflect that back at you, and you'll feel the punch rather than he will. Infrared ray allows him to sense his surroundings using infrared rays. He uses this because he doesn't have any eyes. However, the amount he is able to sense is very limited. The ability to levitate in midair. He has a quirk that allows him to be older than pretty much any human so far, allowing him to face against 8 generations of One for All users. He can multiply the number of his arms. He has hypertrophy that allows him to enlarge his arms. He can cause rivets to come out. He can cause spirit bones to come out, and he's able to combine any one of these quirks, no problem. And ultimate combination is he combines spring-like limbs, 4 kinetic booster quirks, 3 strength enhancer quirks, multiplier, hypertrophy, rivets, airwalk, and spear-like bones to greatly enhance his right arm. This combination of quirks is what All for One attempted to use in order to kill All Might. He even added impact recoil onto this combination to better his chances at defeating All Might. So even if All Might tried to meet All for One with the same strength, he would that impact recoil would cause the damage that he subjected to All for One to recoil back on him on top of the punch that All for One would give him, but it still wasn't enough to beat All Might. So these are just the abilities of All for One. But going back to the description of the quirk itself, All for One can be used to combine several quirks in order to create devastating techniques. which would normally not be possible with the usage of only one quirk. All for One's user hints that his wish is for Tomura Shigaraki to inherit his quirk, implying that transferring All for One itself to another person is possible. Weaknesses. There are some limitations to the quirk. Not all recipients of a quirk for One for All are able to handle the strain of gaining them. Subsequently, they become mindless dolls which are not able to speak or think for themselves. The effectiveness of the quirk that are stolen by All for One depends on his own abilities. He stated he did not want to steal Best Genus Fiber Master as it required too much training and expertise to truly master. So pretty much All for One just uses quirks that are easy, that are pretty much not difficult to learn, but can just be built on. Even if he doesn't train himself to use it, he can just gain multiples of those quirks to make up for it. Strength in numbers rather than expertise. And implies that he prefers to steal quirks with straightforward abilities, just like I said. All for One is incapable of stealing One for All from its wielder, as that quirk can only be passed on if the present wielder wills it. Thus, wielders of One for All can act as a natural counter of sorts against All for One's ability to steal other quirks. All for One can get transferred. It's implied. It is heavily implied because All for One has said that he wants Shigaraki to inherit his quirk. So, I don't know what way, but apparently there's a way for him to transfer pretty much All for One itself over to him. But it's heavily implied. Wielders of One for All can act as a natural counter of sorts against All for One's ability to steal other quirks. Sorry, throat's getting dry. I don't want to feel the repercussions of that. I knew I was going to give myself the hiccups. You ever get hiccups? Just breathe in deeply and then breathe out deeply. But don't rush it. Just do it slow. And the hiccups are gone. That's why I rarely get hiccups. I learned that from a Cat in a Hat TV show I watched when I was a kid. And I've taught other people that, and they're shocked that that's something that simple that you can learn. Thank you, Cat in a Hat. Wielders of One for All can act as a natural counter of sorts against All for One's ability to steal other quirks. And this is just All for One itself. We still have One for All to go through. However, he was able to overcome this limitation in the past against previous wielders of One for All due to the sheer number of quirks he possessed. It's been discussed by Daruma Ujiko that over time, the large number of accumulated quirks within All for One was becoming dangerous to the user himself. While it seemed that All for One could allow the user to safely control any number of quirks, there was a limit to how much the user can control without it adversely affecting them, like the Nomu. Dharma went on to state that if the memory, the amount of power of a quirk exceeds the hardware, the body of the quirk user, then it will cause serious problem. So if the amount of power that All for One has in him exceeds his body's capacity to hold it, it will affect him. This is somewhat similar to One for All, which requires rigorous physical training for the user to use to its fullest extent. Usage: the man who wields All for One once used his quirk to dominate Japan's society over a century ago, literally 100 years ago, using his quirk to take away unwanted quirks and give them to those who needed them in exchange for favors. And that's how the army of All for One started. Eventually, All for One's user would amass a large following of loyal subordinates that carried out every single one of his wishes. Later, this man would use All for One to empower artificially made monsters known as Nomu in order to assist Tomura and the League of Villains with the achievement of the goals. Even after his arrest, however, Nomus with access to various quirks are still being produced somehow, and his role in this scheme, assuming he has any, is not yet known at this moment. And it just goes on to say that he likes to use the quirk to combine together to maximize their power and effectiveness, often to truly catastrophic levels. Since this man has no qualms with killing, he doesn't hold back in fights and will even target defenseless people, using them as a distraction for his advantage. It's been suggested by All Might that All for One was used to obtain a quirk that grants agelessness, explaining how its user is still alive to this day. So, and All for One is the oldest known named quirk in the entire series, being well over 100 years old and its user still alive just fine. So that's All for One. Going to One for All, It's a lot more extensive. Long ago, a man with a quirk that could steal other quirks and give them away forcibly gave his seemingly quirkless brother a quirk that allowed him to stockpile power within his body. So every time the power got transferred, it was also stockpiled. So whenever it combined with another person's quirk, their quirk combined with One for All, and it got stronger with each passing generation. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Currently, there are 9 users of All for One, and Midoriya has learned how to use one additional quirk on top of the strength quirk. So that means that there are 7 more quirks for Midoriya to fully learn. Because all the quirks that these people had within their own bodies is in One for All as well, including the additional stockpiled power. However, unknown to either of them, the younger brother already had a quirk with no other power than that it could be transferred to another person. The transference quirk and the power stockpiling quirk merged into one, and from then on became One for All. The younger brother somehow discovered this. He had a strong sense of justice, and he tried to defeat All for One, but given the huge difference in their strength, the young brother failed. The younger brother decided to entrust the quirk to future generations of heroes, hoping that they would cultivate One for All and one day put a stop to All for One. Very few knew the truth about One for All for fear of what villains would do if they found out that the world's most powerful quirk could be transferred. All for One sought after One for All, and as a result, almost all of the users of One for All were killed by his hand, but not before they each had the chance to pass on the quirk to a successor so that it could reach the future. The 7th user, Nana Shimura, was the last holder killed by his hand, while her apprentice and heir to One for All Might, Toshinori Yagi, fought All for One at least twice, winning both battles. The quirk was passed down through 9 generations, growing stronger with the passage of time. Currently, One for All is one of the most powerful quirks in existence, albeit being very difficult to fully master. Do you believe that Bakugo is the 2nd user of One for All because of time travel? No. I don't think so. Description. One for All is a transferable quirk that can be passed on from one user to the next. Its name comes from its nature, being one quirk for all people. In order for the quirk to be transferred, the recipient must ingest a sample of the predecessor's DNA, example, a strand of hair or a drop of blood. In order for the quirk to be transferred, the current owner must freely choose to transfer it. Because of this, look at this picture of the 2nd user and then look at Bakugo. Well, how would that be a thing if Bakugo's a young kid growing up with Midoriya? And then going back a ways, how is he a user? If Bakugo traveled in time, which I still highly doubt, how did he become young again in the future and then ends up finding about, my thing is, you say that you believe that Bakugo is the 2nd user of One for All because of time travel. Look at the picture of the 2nd user, then look at Bakugo. It clearly says that One for All went through killing every single person who had One for All. I highly doubt Bakugo would still be alive and then travel into the future if he was the 2nd user. I highly doubt it. In order for the quirk to be transferred, the current owner must freely choose to transfer it. Because of this, the power cannot be forcibly taken, like I said earlier. However, it can be forcibly given, as the recipient doesn't have to agree to anything. Since One for All can't be forcibly taken, it is the only quirk that can be used in combat against All for One, as any user of All for One would simply be able to steal any other quirk. One for All also allows the user to stockpile an enormous amount of raw power, allowing them to significantly enhance all of their physical capabilities to a superhuman level. This results in unbelievable levels of strength, speed, agility, and durability. The user can focus the stockpile power into a single body part or spread the power evenly throughout their body, although focusing the power puts greater strain on the part of the body where the power is focused. The user is able to control the percentage of the power that they activate. The core of One for All has grown in strength from being passed from user to user, and the quirk factors of all the previous users have merged into the core, granting the current user the ability to access these quirks. The quirks have significantly increased in strength since they were used by their original users. This is due to the nature of One for All's core stockpiling power and increasing in strength from user to user. So that pretty much means that all the quirks that are in Midoriya's body right now, over the years, as One for All has been cultivating and stockpiling, all the quirks that these previous users have, they have grown in strength with every single user they've passed on to. So that means that every quirk that Midoriya is going to get access to is going to be astronomically more powerful than when they were used by their original users. Nana Shimura could only float. Midoriya is going to have a lot more power to deal with when it comes to, you know, floating around and flying and whatever. And his black web, it is significantly more powerful than when the previous user of that quirk was able to use it. When Bakugo became a hero, he used this Eris quirk to go back in time to tell the first user how to transfer for One for All. Sorry, I can't spell that good. And I can say for a fact that that is absolutely that's a bit far-fetched. When Bakugo became a hero, he used Eri's quirk to go back in time, but she can't travel back in time. She can only reverse things. It's not when Eri uses her ability, it's not sending people back in time. It's reversing their state in time. That's the reason why her dad disappeared all the way back from existence. When she reverses something, she's just reversing its state, not their place in time. So her not a time traveling quirk that she has, it's a reversing, and it's still something that she can't control. There's a whole theory video about it. Even if there's a video about it, I highly doubt that Bakugo is the second user, because like I said, One for All went and killed every single user. Her quirk can evolve. Yeah, it can evolve, but I'm still standing by what I believe is how things are. I highly doubt that Bakugo is the second hero because he would not be here. If Bakugo was the second hero from the past, then how is he alive if One for All went through killing every single one of the users? So, no, I highly doubt that that's Bakugo. There's absolutely no way that that's Bakugo. But that's just my own opinion. People, you know, have their own theories. But that's just my own opinion. In addition to the quirk factors merging it with the core, One for All carries echoes of the consciousness of all the previous users. So it's like Whis' do-over. Now, the thing with Eri's quirk, with Whis' do-over, he can only do it by a couple of minutes. With Eri, she can pretty much reverse a person back to before they were even born. So by extent, her ability to reverse exceeds that of Whis. Now, mind you, we still don't know the limits of how far Whis can rewind back time, but we've only seen him do it for like a couple of minutes, you know, during the time, like during the resurrection of Frieza, and he tried to destroy the planet. He could only rewind it 3 minutes back. And that was back when, you know, back to a certain point where Frieza was literally seconds away from destroying the planet, you know, gave Goku enough time to kill Frieza. But with Eri's quirk, she is able to fully reverse somebody back. And given the fact that when she was linked up with Midoriya and he was using his quirk to 100% of his power, Eri just kept reversing his body to a healed state so he could constantly use All for One at 100% power the entire fight. Of course, mind you, after all was said and done, he felt the effects of it. And it kind of hurt him a little bit. But yeah, it's kind of like a do-over, but to a much grander extent. One for All draws power from the cries of help of those in need, as they are like a direct order to the user. One for All also seems to alter the user's appearance in different ways. For All Might, it significantly enlarges his muscles and overall body mass to make him look like a completely different person, similar to a giant. For Izuku, usage of One for All causes the empowered part of his body to glow, with vein-like lines crossing through each other. His body also generates cracking green energy that resembles lightning bolts when he activates One for All, full Cowling. It's unknown what the usage appearance of One for All looked like for its previous handlers, however, because we haven't seen that yet. One for All can be duplicated, but since it's an accumulation type quirk, it cannot be used. Shown when Naoto Monoma was unable to use it after copying it. So It can be copied, but it can't be used. So you can only copy the way it is, but you cannot copy the power that's inside of it. So that's why Monoma wasn't able to fully copy the entire power of it during when he was fighting Midoriya during that whole match between the class of 1B and 1A. Weaknesses. When One For All is transferred, the new user's body is not naturally suited to it as they would be with a quirk they were born as they would be with the quirk they were born with. Example, someone who breathes fire doesn't burn their mouth while using their ability. In addition, One For All is a lot to handle. If one's body can't handle the power, then their body could be blown apart, just like I said earlier. Because of this, the successor must undergo intense and rigorous training of the body. After One For All is transferred, the previous user is left with only residual power of the quirk, or leftover embers. Pretty much as soon as Midoriya Gay was given and passed on One For All Might started to get weaker and weaker to the point where when he was fighting All For One, mind you, he was at his absolute weakest. All Might beat All For One at his absolute weakest with only a small residual ember of One For All's power left in him. And All For One had so much power stockpiled that was meant to outright kill All Might, but it didn't. All Might. So let's just put that into perspective here. All Might's leftover power of One For All that he gave to Midoriya was still enough to beat the most powerful person we've seen in My Hero so far. So can you imagine what All For One's and All Might's fights would have been like when he was in his prime? All For One also was injured. He was only injured in the fact that he couldn't see and his whole upper area right here, all of that was gone. And he pretty much had a bunch of injuries, but it still wasn't enough to keep him down. And he was a lot more powerful than a lot of heroes there. And the fact that he was also ageless as well, and I feel like he could regenerate, but only to a certain extent. No, he couldn't because he hasn't been able to find a regeneration quirk. Well, he couldn't get a good enough regeneration quirk for himself. Even though All For One was injured, he was still exceptionally powerful. They both were injured. They both left marks on one another. Like literally the whole upper half of All For One was gone, including his nose a little bit. And All Might had that scar that pretty much caused some of his own he had some of his organs removed, and he was still able to fight All For One no problem. Well, some problem, but still beat him in the end. So can you imagine what a fight between a prime All For One and a prime All Might would have been like? Whatever devastation they would have caused with their fight in the city when it came to their final battle would pale in comparison to the devastation they would cause when they fight at their prime. Kind of reminds me a little bit about Prime Roger versus Prime Whitebeard. We've seen that chapter, but for those of you who have not read that chapter or just watch One Piece, the anime, I won't go into spoilers here, but I'm just letting you know now. Their reputation for being absolute monsters, it's not myth, it's not legend, it is real. But let's see. After One For All is transferred, the previous user is left with only residual power of the quirk or leftover embers. While they would still be able to utilize the power to essentially the same degree as before, continuous usage of it will cause a strain on the user before ultimately the wielder cannot make a tangible use of the quirk at all. After All Might's final battle against One For All, Okay, they definitely got this wrong. This is supposed to say All For One instead of One For All. After All Might's final battle against All For One, his ability to sustain his muscular form was reduced to seconds, rendering him unable to make any use of his residual power. And assimilated quirks, the quirk factors of each of the previous users have merged with the core of One For All and have since increased in strength due to One For All's nature of stockpiling power. Izuku is the first user capable of accessing the quirks of the previous users. And so far, the current users So far, the current abilities is Black Whip from the 5th user, Daigoto Banjo, which allows him to create tendrils of dark energy from their arms. They're good for grappling and increases the user's mobility, but we also seen that since it's been stockpiled after all these years, it has grown powerful enough where it can actually cause harm to both the environment and to people. And next is the quirk that Midori is going to eventually learn is the floating quirk, wielded by the previous user of One for All. Have to go. What if? Hey, it was good to have you here while you were here. I'm about to end it real. Wow, I've gone on an hour. I'm sorry. Okay, I need to finish this. But floating is a quirk used by Nanashimura, so eventually he's going to be able to learn how to levitate. But given the stockpiling nature of One for All, it's probably going to allow him to just full-on fly and go above and beyond. So as soon as he learns to fly, it's a done deal for Midoriya. His ability to fight is going to increase beyond any level that I'm pretty sure he's ever thought possible. Because now he's going to be able to fight people at every stage. He's no longer going to be limited to the ground or having to worry about jumping anywhere. He can just fly. So that's from Nanashimura. And then he has 4 other unknown quirks. So we know of 2 from the previous users, but he has 4 other belonging to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 6th users of One for All. So that is pretty much All for One and One for All, and how they contrast, and how One for All can't be taken by force, but has to be given. And it's just making me wonder. This is supposed to be a story of how Midori becomes the world's #1 superhero. What kind of devastation, what kind of fights are we going to see before that one moment becomes realized? Before we see that final chapter of One Piece where Midoriya walks out and he's the #1 superhero and he's just recounting events that have already transpired. How long will it be? What will go on? I don't know. But overall, this chapter as a whole, sorry it took me like a whole hour just to get to this one particular point. But I'm done with the chapter. I'm done with it. So overall, I thought that this was a fantastic chapter, because things are really, really heating up for all the heroes who are at the hospital, and we still have Hawks over at the Mountain Villa where a lot of the other villains are. So who knows what's going to transpire once everything starts to go down, once Shigaraki wakes up, once the heroes catch up to Mirko and actually arrest Daruma. Who knows what's going to go down? But I'm glad that we have a chapter coming out next week, which gives us something to look forward to. Sure, a lot of theories are going to be made, but at the same time, I'm happy that we're getting them. So overall, I rate this like a 9 out of 10 due to just how quickly things are actually progressing. They're not prolonging things too far. They're just progressing everything. So, bit my tongue. I'm so sorry. So overall, I thought this was a great chapter overall. And yeah, that's just my verdict on it. I give it a 9 out of 10. Very good chapter, because things are progressing quickly, and who knows what answers we may even get answered. Questions may even get answered once this next chapter comes out. And who knows what new things we may even learn given these current chapters that are going on right now, dealing with this whole arresting Daruma thing. So that's just my take on it. But with that being said, I've gone on far too long. Please forgive me, everybody. But with that being said, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in the next video. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples. Time to eat these soft batch cookies. Woo!